Hi guys, it's Lucy. So today we are going to talk about Babel by Rebecca Kuang. This book has been blowing up everywhere, and I'm not usually someone who picks up a book just because it's trendy, but I was very interested in this because of the storyline, and also it's an Asian author. There's a certain element of representation that I felt that I wanted to take part of. All of that aside, though, this book was amazing. I didn't expect it to be so engrossing. I haven't read a fantasy book in a long time, but in my working memory, this is one of the best standalone fantasies that I've read. So there's a couple of things that I want to highlight that I think makes this book a really great read. So the first being the premise. It's set in Oxford University with a really cool library. So that in itself, for a book nerd, is one of the best settings I think one could start off with. And the premise itself. So just comparing it to say the three body problem. There are so many people that I talk to who love the Three Body series, the trilogy, and the reason is because I think they are very interested in the whole physics aspects of it, the science, the logic. It's a very theoretical, science-based story, whereas this Babel is like the complete opposite in the literary or arts sense, because the whole magic making comes from what is being lost in translation, and the medium being silver. So you hear silver working, and that is the whole fantasy aspect, which is extremely creative. So you've got these students that Oxford has brought in from all over the world, and they are trained to be super ultra mega experts on multiple languages, to the point where they dream in multiple languages, which is something I never thought about. And then when I ask people, it's very interesting. People usually dream in just one language, or they don't dream in a language at all, like there's no language, they just have thoughts. So that was something interesting that I started asking my friends after reading this book, like, what language do you dream in? So these students, because they understand the nuances of multiple languages, they use that and to create these word pairs, and the power to have practical applications to make the world run on steroids in some sort of way, translates through. So it's a very word literature, like art oriented way of magic. So that is extremely different than what you get in science fiction. So this is very much in the realm of fantasy, so more like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, where you've got like a gothic English setting and injected with medieval magic, like on the side, in a very realistic setting, but like there's magic in that world. So similar here, you've got Oxford University during the time of the Poppy Wars and colonialism and a lot of racism, injected with this aspect of silver working. So speaking of the Poppy Wars, so the second part that I thought was really cool was that the story of this revolves around colonialism, and how these kids, how these four main characters who are from different races, different backgrounds than your core English people, how they are growing into the world and seeing the realities of colonialism and how it's impacting their own cultures and making them question their own identities and loyalties. So the whole thing, in a way, and I don't know if all immigrants would agree with this, but for young people who weren't completely solidified in their original culture, the whole thing is a euphemism for what immigrants go through at a certain stage. What is your identity, and where do your loyalties ultimately lie? So these four characters, you've got Raimi, Indian dude, Robin, Chinese dude, Letty, English girl, and Victoire, a very soft-spoken black girl. So out of these four characters, they are all so well developed, and their conversations within this is very tight. So you can really feel the friction, the camaraderie, the compromises, the certain emotional, and like all of these relationships. It's well done. It's not overdone. The whole thing is really well tempered, where it's not really skewing towards romance. It's not skewing towards theoretical arguments or just bonding. Like, it's all in the context of themselves. So how they are growing. I feel like this whole thing is a journey almost, and that's what's really cool about this, because this, as Robin especially, because I feel like he is the main protagonist here, and especially as he is growing to learn about the impact of their education and their work and what's expected of them in the future. That context and the friction of his loyalties with his friends and how they might view things differently is very well done. And the aspect of colonialism in itself is very cool, because none of the fantasy books that I've ever read or heard of has touched on the Poppy Wars. And this is different than, say, we're talking about banana plantations, where colonialism was more very much like one-sided, where it was just the whole country is dominated and it's just political turmoil and no one saw what was coming almost. But with regards to China, the country itself is already powerful, and they are fighting against commercial interests, against subtle ways of domination that the British have tried. And this is all very real in history. So I think Rebecca Kuang did a really good job of highlighting a certain chapter of Asian history that Westerners don't really focus on at all, but does have, I think, a long-lasting memory for a lot of Chinese people. So I really like that. And so, the last thing I thought was really cool, and I saw this last because it's like at the end of the jacket cover. The author herself is so young, and she's got graduate degrees from Cambridge and Oxford. And I think it says here that she's currently doing a PhD at Yale in East Asian languages. I think this is definitely an author that I would keep an eye on. And for anybody who really enjoyed Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I think this is up your street. But if you're someone who really enjoyed the three-body problem, this might not be your cup of tea. So that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling, and leave me a note if you've read this or if you're interested in picking it up. I'd really love to know what you think about this new fantasy fiction book. Have a good day. Bye.